Thanks for staying with us. Now, it's reported that more than 700,000 people commit suicide worldwide annually. Mental health groups say suicide can be prevented, and they're urging people not to suffer in silence. They're calling on family and friends of those who are feeling suicidal to be available to offer support. This year's theme for World Suicide Prevention Day is creating hope through action. Let's hear what a survivor has to say.
My name is Sibusisiwe Ghana, and I would like to share my mental health journey with you. February 2020, I tried to commit suicide. I was feeling very lonely with an infant and useless as I had lost my job, going through financial difficulty. I went to one of our local clinics in Diepsloot and met one of SADC's volunteers who was doing a clinic talk on depression. I told the volunteer that I was going through all the signs that she mentioned as signs of depression, and she took my name and contact number. A few days later, I received a call from one of the counselors from the SADC container to set up a face-to-face counseling session. I went to the blue container in Diepsloot, situated next to the fire station, and was referred to a psychological doctor who said I should go for more therapy or counseling sessions at the container.
Now, for more information on this sensitive topic, we're joined by SADC's Cassie Chambers. Thank you so much for your time, Cassie. We do appreciate it. I think many people shy away from having this very frank conversation about mental health issues and people wanting to take their lives. But it's quite alarming that 700,000 people commit suicide worldwide annually. In the last 2 years with the COVID-19 pandemic, have we seen this number getting worse?
So it's so difficult to put stats and numbers because we know that in South Africa, we don't have the updated stats that we would like. What we do know, and just from SADC's experience, is our call volumes have so increased. So that could be showing that more people are reaching out and knowing who to contact, which is a positive thing. But what we've also seen just from research that's slowly coming out from across the world is that suicide, depression, more and more people are reaching out and getting help. And as we've had the COVID pandemic, a lot of experts from around the globe are saying that the mental health impact will be the second pandemic. So we are concerned. We do anticipate that some of the figures will increase over the next couple of years. And that's why it's so important to raise awareness now, so that we can, instead of reacting and providing crisis intervention, we want to prevent suicides and educate people on what to look out for and how to get help before it's too late.
I want to speak about how people don't really want to speak about their mental health issues and how important it is for people to go out and seek for help. I know you just briefly touched on that, but it's also about raising awareness and saying it's okay not to be okay, but it's also okay to ask for help.
Oh, sorry. I think, again, we don't always have the language. We don't know what to say or how to say it. And even, as you mentioned earlier, for family and friends, we don't know how to have that conversation. It's often a really hard conversation. And I think we're not equipped with the tools. And I think for anyone who's feeling overwhelmed or who's ever had dark thoughts or felt helpless or hopeless, just saying to someone, I'm really not coping, can we chat? For a loved one or friend who maybe has identified someone who's going through a difficult time and they've noticed that they're not quite themselves and they have that gut feeling that something's not okay, it's really important to reach out and say, hey, I'm really worried about you. How are you really doing? How are you coping? And I think just starting that conversation, starting that brave conversation can really just help that person to open up. I think a lot of people think that if I start that conversation, I have to fix the problem, or I'm not a therapist, or I'm not a psychiatrist. And you don't have to be. You just have to start the conversation and say, hey, I'm here for you. You're not alone. Let's get help together. And you can either go to a GP or a psychologist or a counselor or a psychiatrist. And if you're not even sure where to begin, you can always pick up the phone and speak to SADC, and we can help you and refer you to resources in your area. The most important thing is that talking about depression, their mental health, or even suicide could literally save a life. So that important conversation is more important than perhaps saying something that's not quite 100% right, but starting that conversation is the most important point.
Certainly, but I also think, Cassie, and this is the reality, is that, society is almost built in a way or programmed in a way to not really speak about mental health issues or somebody going through difficult times. It's almost as though we are programmed to say, it's going to be okay, don't worry about it, eventually things will sort themselves out. But sometimes it's a lot more deeper than that. And I want to speak about how this year's theme for World Suicide Prevention Day is creating hope through action. And it's also up to each individual to be aware of the people in your life and say, are you really okay? And it's okay not to be okay. I keep repeating that because oftentimes we just want to be strong and face the world because that's what we need to be like, strong and face the world and forget about our problems. But it's about creating that hope through action and actually providing that necessary support.
And I think you've touched on such an important point on not ignoring it and not talking about it and really having some action to it. We don't always, in our society and community, we haven't been brought up using the correct words or being encouraged to share what we're going through. And I think over the last couple of years, we're slowly seeing that change where a lot more people are coming forward and saying, hey, I've had depression, or I'm not coping, or I've had anxiety. And we need more people coming out and sharing their stories, which is so important. And I think when we look at the stigma around mental health that still exists, where we still think it's a sign of weakness or that you're less than. I think there's a lot of common myths when it comes to suicide as well, that, they're just attention seeking. People who are suicidal are just cowards, or they're just, crying wolf. And I think from our experience and with receiving over 3,000 calls per day, that's not the case. And I think the more we get to talk about it and have these conversations and normalize talking about mental health and normalize conversations around getting help. And I'm seeing my therapist, and this is what helps me to cope on a daily basis. By doing that, we break the stigma and we're encouraging other people, like you said, our friends and our family who maybe have felt that way, to reach out and say, actually, that's how I've been feeling, or did this work for you? And I think we're having to do a lot more around really reaching out. And this is what SADAG is also trying to do, not just for one day being World Suicide Prevention Day, but creating these safe spaces to have this brave conversation. So throughout the month of September, we're hosting webinars, we're doing Facebook Friday online chats, we're running discussions on Twitter Spaces. We want to get more and more people to talk about it, to learn how to talk about it, and to encourage people and to give them the safe space to reach out and say, actually, I'm not coping. When we look at the fact that 3,000 people are reaching out every day, there's probably hundreds and thousands more who are not. And those are the people that we have to reach out to and make sure that they know that they're not alone and that there is help before it's too late. When we look at the tragedy that suicide leaves behind with families and friends, we know that it devastates entire people and communities, and we want to prevent that. And we want the person to know who is feeling suicidal to know that there is help and that they're not alone.
Yes, and I also think you touch on an important point where, people often think they're alone or what they're going through is unique to them. But often you find when you share your story, people are possibly going through the very same, or they've gone through something worse. And I know each person's pain and trauma is unique to their lives and their realities. But it's important to share and just spread love. I think that's very important. But thank you for all the work that you do. I think it's really great that people out there know that they have the necessary support. Thank you so much for your time. That's SADAG's Casey Chambers. Thanks for speaking to us about a very important topic that I think we often choose to neglect.